Si comes tienes que lavar tu plato, Firulais. Anda, enjuágalo bien. No me gruñas. A ver, con la esponja eso. Y enjuaga bien que luego deja todo jabonoso. Eso así, muy bien, aunque de malas.
Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Claressa Shields details difficulties. Squeezing back down to 160, there weren't any meaningful fights left for her at 175, the heavyweight limit for women boxers, and a rematch with former IBF super middleweight champion Savannah Marshall, the only opponent to truly push Shields in any of her 18 professional bouts, became less appealing when Jade Green upset Marshall by split decision over a year ago. 13 months to be exact. Not that Claressa was open to having that rematch with Savannah, because she wasn't. Green was subsequently upset by Lonnie Daniels, an opponent Shields dominated, which eliminated another option for her at super middle. Shields seeks legitimate challenges while she remains in her physical prime. Although the clock is ticking, the biological one, as Claressa Shields recently sat down with Cam Newton for his podcast and detailed she means to have a child in the coming year. Before that, she targeted middleweight matches against junior middleweight champion Michaela Mayer and Ring Magazine, IBF, WBA, and WBC champion at welter Lauren Price. At 31, Shields determined the middleweight limit of 160 is as low as she can go at this point in her career without compromising her ability to perform at an elite level. The undefeated 5-weight world champion nonetheless has found it extremely difficult to get down to 160 for the first time in 3 years. That's the contracted weight limit for Shields' 10-round fight against WBA, WBC middleweight champion Kay Scotch on Saturday night at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. If Shields regains her 2 middleweight crowns from Scotch, she is expected to square off with the Welsh Lauren Price, who would move up 2 weight classes to face Shields sometime early next year. Though say she doesn't, that could accelerate plans from Claressa Shields to give birth to her first child if she faces any friction in getting Lauren in the ring, and she might. I'm very focused, but it's not easy, Shields told The Ring regarding her weight cut. It's not easy, and that's why I went to 175. I didn't go to 175 because I couldn't hold 160. One, I just couldn't get the fights I wanted when I was at 160, but it was also a tough weight for me to hold anyway. So the fact that I had to keep being put on the bench for 6, 7, 8, 10 months to get these girls to agree to fights, and then you go to 175 and you have 4 or 5 girls lined up who are like, yeah, I'll fight you. It was a no-brainer. The caveat up there, though, is that the talent pool is quite shallow, and there are not actually that many girls to fight. So moving down was always an eventuality. The 2-time Olympic gold medalist from Flint, Michigan, went 4-0 in the heavyweight division and became undisputed champion in a third. She most recently shut out Franchone Cruz on all 3 judges' scorecards in what was their 10-round rematch February 22nd. At the Little Caesars Arena in Detroit, Shields, now 18-0 with 3 KOs, ranked number 2 on the Ring's pound-for-pound list, grew completely comfortable competing at light heavyweight, and she is a 20-1 favorite to beat Kay Scotch, the 42-year-old Aussie who will defend her unified crown for the first time. Yet Shields won't know for sure how she'll feel fighting at middleweight again until Saturday night. I had some of my toughest fights at light heavyweight, Shields said, but going to 175 I gained so much muscle and strength, and my body is just accustomed to being there. Now, having to go down to 160, it has been difficult. I've just been making sure I do everything right, making sure I do my cardio, making sure I spar, making sure I do my strength and conditioning, making sure I drink my water, take my supplements. I've been on it very, very extra for this fight because I think anybody can lose weight, but there's a difference between losing weight and then how do you feel once the weight is made. I still have to fight. Like, somebody can fast for 10 days and they'll lose 16 pounds. They don't have to fight after that. I have to make sure that while I'm losing weight, I keep my strength, keep my speed, keep my stamina, and my endurance, and don't hurt myself. So it's been a journey, for sure. I don't doubt that it was difficult for Claressa Shields to get down to 160, and if she did lose something on the way down, it will be offset by the skills gap between her and Kay Scotch, and Kay Scotch's age. That Claressa's a very spry 31 years old, whereas Kay is 42. Not getting any faster or sharper, not getting any younger. I've seen her in action. I saw both her fights with Olivia Curry. I don't think Claressa Shields has anything to worry about, even if it was a difficult weight cut. Most of the boxing world aware of this fight are looking well past Kay Scotch. Nobody's picking her to win this thing, so the most that Claressa can do to make the situation salvageable with an opponent that nobody knows, in a fight that is widely being interpreted as a foregone conclusion, is treated as such. Go in there, beat her up real bad, and get her out of there. Make her a highlight reel. Like what you're supposed to do in a showcase fight. I understand that there are 2 alphabet titles on the line, and Kay is a unified champion, but people still look at this as a showcase fight. So treat it as such. It's the best thing you can do. Even if they didn't know this woman going into the fight, they may remember how you beat her up afterwards. And that's about it. Men's super middleweight news. Janibek targets Canelo Alvarez fight before even getting past Hamza Shiraz. Assuming he does. Janibek already has plans for Hamza Shiraz's WBO super middleweight title. On the belt, Christian Mabili will defend against Canelo Alvarez on October 31st. Canelo, get ready, inshallah. I'll beat Shiraz and we'll unify the titles. It is an ambitious plan requiring several pieces to fall his way. The WBO recently named Janibek the mandatory challenger for Shiraz at 168. Janibek still has to get the fight and then beat a much bigger opponent in his first bout at super middle. Shiraz also has reason to pursue another option. His team could ask the WBO to set the mandatory aside while he seeks a unification against the Canelo versus Mabili winner. I don't think that's likely. Why not? The WBO have only given them 20 days to iron out a deal. That's not a lot of time because you have to convince them to step aside in those 20 days, and you have to iron out a separate deal with one of the other champions at the weight. In that short window, I don't know if that's possible, but that would theoretically give Shiraz a far more lucrative fight than just defending against Janibek. Timing complicates that possibility. Canelo does not challenge Mabili for the WBC title until the very end of October. Shiraz would effectively be waiting for a fight that does not exist yet, and the WBO would have to decide how long Janibek should wait for his mandatory opportunity. Janibek's prediction also assumes Canelo beats Mabili. Only then would Canelo possess the WBC title required for the unification Janibek is discussing. Even if both results go exactly as Janibek envisions, another obstacle remains that Canelo would have to choose him. Well, in a situation like that, he might. Janibek may own the WBO title by then, but Canelo has numerous opponents with greater commercial appeal. Shiraz himself offers the British market, while Chris Eubank Jr. represents another lucrative UK draw. A Terence Crawford return would generate huge business, and Dimitri Bivol provides Canelo a chance to avenge his 2022 defeat. Jaron Ennis and Sebastian Fundora could eventually provide recognizable opponents moving up. David Benavidez remains a major name. Okay, let me stop you right there. Sebastian Fundora and Jaron Ennis are both at junior middleweight, and Jaron Ennis only just arrived there. How do you have him moving all the way up to 168 now for Canelo? How do you have David Benavidez moving down for Canelo? He's at cruiserweight now. Who wrote this article? Where did they write it? Under a rock? They mentioned Dimitri Bivol? Buddy, it's been years since the Bivol fight. If Canelo wanted a rematch with that guy, it would have happened by now. Crawford. Yeah, Terence Crawford and a potential ring return. A rematch seems a little bit more likely than those aforementioned options, but I wouldn't hold my breath. What about Chris Eubank? Would have been a viable option for Canelo if he had won the second Conor Benn fight, but losing that fight the way that he did and looking the way that he looked, who the fuck wants to see Chris Eubank Jr. fight Canelo? The article continues, there are also stars several divisions below Canelo who might become possibilities if they decided to make a Crawford-style jump up. Ryan Garcia carries massive drawing power. Devin Haney and Conor Benn could also become commercially attractive choices if either pursued Canelo later in the year.
The article says that?
That's what it says.
It almost reads like the author of this article would prefer that almost anybody fight Canelo, even welterweights, instead of Janibek, where near as I can tell, if Canelo beats Christian and Janibek beats Hamza, yes, their fight can happen, and it's not a bad fight.
The article continues, that is the difficulty Janibek faces. Becoming WBO champion would not force Canelo to consider him the best business option. Oslys Iglesias provides another example. The IBF champion is one of the more dangerous fighters at 168, yet Canelo has given no indication that he wants that matchup. Holding the IBF title does not automatically overcome the risk versus reward calculation. Janibek could encounter the same problem.
I think Janibek would at least get that fight before Oslys Iglesias. He's even lesser known than Janibek.
His route makes sense from a championship perspective. Beat Shiraz, take the WBO title, then call the WBC champion. Canelo operates from a much stronger commercial position and can choose among opponents capable of generating considerably more money. Before that becomes relevant, Janibek has to get a shot at Hamza, beat him, and then hope Canelo gets past Mabili. Even if all three happen,
Janibek still needs Canelo to pick him.
Now here is why he might. This article doesn't seem convinced that Janibek would be in the running, where I think he would be because Canelo already fought the WBA champion Jaime Munguia, and now Jaime is a member of his team. So should Canelo beat Christian Mabili, he's not going to look at him, and I don't think he's going to look at the Cuban either.
The IBF champion Oslys Iglesias, as he is an even lesser known fighter than Janibek.
They're questioning Janibek's viability as a commercial draw now, but you have to imagine a world where he just beat Hamza Shiraz, and imagine that he's knocked him out. What would that do for the commercial viability of a Canelo fight?
Because I don't think Canelo's going to fight Jaime again. He's a member of his team, and I don't even think Canelo knows who Oslys Iglesias is. So that's two world champions at the weight he's not going to fight, leaving only Janibek.
All those other people the author of the article mentioned, it seemed more to me like he was grasping at straws, looking for anyone and everyone not named Janibek Alimkhanalai. How could you bring up Devin Haney, Sebastian Fundora, Jaron Ennis?
What the fuck are you smoking?
Maybe the author of the article doesn't know how to think 10 steps ahead. You're imagining a world where even though Janibek isn't worth much money now, he would be if he can knock out Hamza in good fashion. You're imagining a world where Canelo has also won his fight with Christian Mabili. If he did, that'd be a big confidence boost for Canelo, who's still coming off that loss to Terence Crawford. Confidence boost needed to look at a guy like Janibek, who would still be new to the division, and say, I can handle him, I can handle that Kazakh, I've handled one before, a better one than him. The way I look at it, the winner of Janibek versus Shiraz, whoever it is, whether it's Janibek or Hamza, is the likeliest candidate to fight Canelo if Canelo beats Christian. In fact, I think the bigger question isn't which one of them is going to end up fighting Canelo. The bigger question is Canelo going to beat Christian? Because that's what all of this hinges on.
Canelo doesn't beat him, there goes the neighborhood.
In men's light heavyweight news, Zuffa invokes quote-unquote lose and you're fired clause, cuts former WBC champion Gvozdyk via email. Zuffa Boxing has invoked a lose and we can fire you clause to terminate the contract of former WBC world champion following a knockout defeat. The fighter in question is Oleksandr Gvozdyk, whose Zuffa career lasted just one fight despite dropping Radovaya Kalajdzic 2 times and appearing to be closing in on victory before suffering a dramatic 7th-round knockout in February. Gvozdyk has now revealed that his defeat ultimately cost him more than the fight. They terminated the contract in February after one loss, Gvozdyk told Ring magazine. That is, they have the option that if a boxer loses, they reserve the right to terminate the deal. That's exactly what they did.
Yeah, that's what they did to Gvozdyk, but that's not what they did to Ryan Rozicki.
So maybe the manner in which a fighter loses matters. Gvozdyk says the decision initially came as a surprise because the reaction immediately after the fight had been positive. After the fight, everyone was saying how great it was, that everything was great, he explained. Gvozdyk rested and then began preparing for what he believed would be his next appearance around May. Instead, the 39-year-old says he received an email in April informing him that Zuffa had terminated his contract following the February defeat. WBN previously questioned what Gvozdyk's knockout meant for Zuffa's developing roster after the former world champion suffered a dramatic reversal against Gvozdyk, who will now be facing Craig Spider Richards on the undercard of Johnny Fisher's Zuffa debut. What wasn't known at the time that the defeat had cost Gvozdyk his place on the roster, according to the fighter himself. The circumstances make his exit particularly unforgiving.
Unforgiving, though not unfamiliar, because we've seen this before, long before Zuffa was a thing.
Gvozdyk wasn't simply beating, he was winning, and believed he was moments away from stopping Gvozdyk. I could see in his eyes that he was already looking for a corner to capitulate, Gvozdyk said. In moments like these, you sometimes start to neglect defense, and light heavyweight is a division where people hit hard. I wanted to finish the fight. It seemed like a stoppage win was around the corner. It turned out that wasn't the case.
It is true, I saw that fight. It was a good watch. Gvozdyk almost got him, but as the great R&B singer Brandy once said, almost doesn't count.
Gvozdyk's account provides an early example of what defeat can mean for fighters under Zuffa's developing system. Zuffa's lose, and we can fire you approach mirrors the roster cut philosophy long associated with the UFC and is likely to attract scrutiny, especially when a fighter performs well, as Gvozdyk did until being stopped in the 7th.
Here come the double standards.
WBN has previously examined concerns surrounding the level of control fighters could surrender under Zuffa boxing contracts, including warnings from Oscar De La Hoya as the new structure began taking shape. The contract, described by Gvozdyk, leaves a fighter vulnerable in every contest they enter, which can be a double-edged sword.
No more vulnerable than anybody else's contract, because you don't think Matchroom has a similar arrangement with their fighters or Top Rank?
Zuffa keeps its fighters on their toes and ensures they try their hardest in every bout, which pleases the fans. In turn, the fighters don't know where their next paycheck is coming from if they don't get the W. Gvozdyk knows that reality better than most. He entered his Zuffa debut as an ex-WBC light heavyweight king, dropped his opponent 2 times, and came within sight of beginning the relationship with an impressive knockout win.
But he lost, and not only did he lose, also factor in that he's 39 years old.
He chased the finish, got caught, and saw the entire direction of his Zuffa career change in a matter of moments.
So let me stop you right there, because the exact same thing happened to Carlos Adames when he lost to Patrick Teixeira back when Carlos was with Top Rank, which seems like ancient history.
They cut him after a loss, just like they cut Kenny Sims. After a loss, Elvis Rodriguez. After a loss,
Mark Castro was cut by Matchroom immediately following his first professional loss. They didn't keep him, so why are these guys acting like they haven't seen this before?
Or like cutting a 39-year-old fighter coming off his 3rd knockout loss is some unprecedented event. In some instances we've seen, you don't even have to lose to be cut. Jayo Pataya was an unbeaten champion at the time that Matchroom decided not to renew with him. I remember years ago, Deniyar Yelusinov, the amateur standout of Kazakhstan,
Unbeaten.
they cut him, mostly because they didn't know what to do with him, but still, they cut him. So how is this unprecedented?
Remember, they cut Michael Hunter too.
And that wasn't even off a loss. That was off of a draw with Alexander Povetkin. The point being, this isn't anything new, so don't go clutching at your pearls that Zuffa reserves the right to cut fighters at their leisure. All the promoters do that.
At their own discretion. They either want to use you or they don't.
And the same doesn't apply to everybody, because Ryan Rozicki just lost in his Zuffa debut against Chris Billum Smith, and they plan on bringing him back. So maybe it matters the manner in which you lose, and what you have left to give.
But I wouldn't go pulling out a violin that they cut a 39-year-old fighter coming off of 3 losses. What do you expect?